Good afternoon. Hello. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Maha Jouini. I'm the founder of African Center for Artificial Intelligence and Digital Technology. I'm based in Mauritania, and I'm really honored and humbled to be invited as a lecturer with the AI Ethics Initiative. I would love to welcome all of you for attending the course about AI ethics and hate speech, where I'm going to focus on hate speech in MENA region. In my presentation, I will start with the welcome message, a short presentation about African Center for Artificial Intelligence and Digital Technology, plus the concept of MENA region, because I guess that most of you may not be familiar with it. The third part will be about hate speech and artificial intelligence. Then the spread of hate speech and its impact in MENA region. Fifth part about problems. Then we will go to analyze the solutions, what we can do against hate speech. Then next step, and we end up by references which I believe it would be useful for you. First of all, I would love to introduce myself. I'm Maha Jouini, I'm author and founder of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Technology. I'm a PhD candidate in the field of computer science and data science. I hold a master from Tianjin University of Education and Technology in China. I published several articles about artificial intelligence, the future of work in Africa, and women inclusion. Moreover, I worked in the African Union campaign to end the child marriage in Africa between 2015 and 2017. I published 2 books. The first book, titled Lover from Africa, where I spotlight the situation of women who come from minorities group in North Africa. The second book, titled The Last Dance from Carthage to China, where I wrote my journey, how I was a student in China and how the Asians perceive Africans. Well, last year, my friends and I, we launched the African Center for AI and Digital Technology called IIKITES. It's a Pan-African think tank interested in supporting AI policies in the African continent and conducting research on digital transformation impact and its challenges in the continent. We, in IIKITES, we believe in Agenda 2063 aspiration, and we are working to make digital technology and artificial intelligence accessible to all African citizens and MENA regions people. Well, here is the MENA region. The MENA region is an acronym of North Africa and Middle East. Well, the connection between all these countries, I think all of us, we speak Arabic. All of us, we have kind of common history, especially the language aspect, plus religion. Most of us, we are all Muslims with minorities of Christian, Jew, Baha'i, some other Druze, Muwahideen, some other communities, Coptics too. Well, our center is providing AI policy studies in Arabic to spread the knowledge in North Africa in a way to enable youth understanding the terminology of artificial intelligence concepts and artificial intelligence ethics, because we think that it's easier for them to understand when the knowledge is presented in their own language, in Arabic. In addition to this, there are that the speakers of foreign languages, the youth who are able to speak and understand in English or in French, most of them, they come from elites, and I have studied in foreign universities and institutes. So to make sure that the knowledge is well spread, we choose to publish and to raise the debate about AI in Arabic. Let me introduce you to hate speech. United Nations define hate speech as hate speech can be conveyed through any form of expression, including images, cartoons, memes, objectives, gestures, and symbols, and it can be disseminated offline or online. Hate speech is discriminatory, biased, bigoted, intolerant, or pejorative. In other words, prejudiced, contemptuous, or demeaning of individual or group. However, in MENA region, we don't have any official governmental definition of hate speech. As a result, there are no sentences or penalty to those who post or share any violence speech. I hope the idea is clear now. Well, I would like to share with you this screenshot of a caricature. This, the evil, he's putting on his head the ICS, and he's killing, he's putting in a funeral the diligence of Islam. So like the peaceful people are dying, and the one who's controlling and talking on behalf of the religion and doing the hate speech, they are the fanatic group, the ICS. Well, why do I took you to the religious part? Because in MENA region, hate speech, the source of hate speech it comes from the fanatic, the fundamentalist group. I hope my idea is clear. Also, the victims of hate speeches are always belonging to minority groups, such LGBT, women, religious minority groups, especially Christian and Jews, black, as they are called as slaves. In Arabic, we say labid. So in MENA region, for most of the case, when they want to humiliate someone, if he has dark skin, they will call him with the abda. These words means child of slave, and so on. Well, I'm sharing with you one of the victims of hate speech. This caricature comes from Sudan. You see here an old man. He goes to a lady. She's walking on the street simply, and he starts to blaming her and giving her his remarks to her, saying in Arabic, يا بنت غطي راسك انت ناسي البلد فيها شريعة إسلامية, which means you girl, cover your head. Don't forget that we are practicing Islamist law in this country. This attitude of blaming women and getting into women business, this is the result of hate speech spread by fundamentalists, where the first victim of it are women. Like me, for example, this case happens to me the last weekend. I'm here in a workshop and there are a woman passing across to me. She stopped her car and she asked me to cover my hair and she insulted me. And I was really shocked because I'm in the middle of the street And she came and she did this for me. Why she did that? Because there are full of hate speech against the women, the Muslim women who don't cover their hair like I do. And we end up by being victims of violating our rights on the streets, and people, they say to us harmful words because we don't wear in the way which they want us to wear. Well, the spread of hate speech in the Arab region throughout social media. There are a sharp increase in online hate speeches, has raised concerns globally and especially in MENA, since the rise of the Arab Spring 2011, which accorded with the high demands to liberate cyberspace and expression rights. Over the time, in the case of Tunisia and Libya, religious parties and armed militias benefited from the transformation in social networking pages, commonly Facebook. Facebook can somehow changed into incubator of hateful and condensing rhetoric in order to implement religious law and call for religious dress for women. Also, there are a call for polygamy, killing the infidels. The infidels, this terminology in Islam religion means who refuse to apply the Muslim law, such as covering the hair, covering the head. So for some fundamentalist group, I'm considered as infidel. Is it clear? Plus, there are a call to fight against the non-Arab minority group in the region. Non-minority Arabs group, we talk about the Black, the Kurds in MENA region, the Amazigh, the indigenous community of North Africa, the Baha'i, each minority, each culture, which their own people refuse to admit to the fundamentalist laws. There are also an impact of hate speech in civil peace and coexistence among people. First of all, I would like to remind you that the minority of Tutsi in Rwanda, do you remember the genocide in Rwanda, where the Tutsi minority were killed? You know why? Because at that time, the majority were calling the Tutsi as cockroaches, and they were killed and they were dehumanizing them. By the time Tutsi became the victims of genocide, before the genocide starts, the Tutsi minority were killed by inhuman words. In June 2011, the Syrian president Bashar al-Assad uses the same words which were used before against the Tutsi minority, used it to describe the peaceful protesters in the country. Later, these terminology were used by the Syrian regime in its media, its supporter, like such as intruders, saboteurs. And these words appeared in an attempt to exclude the revolutionaries people and negate their patriotism. So hate speech also were used by some leaders, some political leaders. You know, even our president, Qais Said, he used the same words to criticize the leftist parties, the leftist political parties, who stood up against his coup d'etat last year. So the president of my government, I'm Tunisian, so our president, in his speech, he describes all the democratic activists in words which deny their patriotism, that the rights defenders, feminists, and so on, they are not faithful to Tunisia. They don't love the country. They are not even faithful to Islam. He used all kind of hate speech against his opposites. Well, in case of Libya, militias groups using internet on social media platform to launch campaign and cyber violence against all Libyans and human rights defenders, authors, thinkers, and so on, because they were demanding to silence the guns and they called for a civil state. Hate speech in cyberspace turns into religious extremism and calls to join extremist religious group. I captured some tweets from Twitter. For example, this tweet says that USA and Europe, led by the evil, are launching a war to eradicate Islam from the earth through pushing you people to support LGBT groups and giving freedoms to women. And this tweet is well spread. There are other tweets. This comes from a channel, a Farsi word, الكلمة الفارسية. This says that a Friday imam, an imam is the religious leader, the person who leads the prayer for Muslim each Friday. Well, so a Friday imam in Tehran calls for the celebration of Aleppo massacre. And he considered it as similar to the victory of the Prophet Muhammad over his enemy 15 centuries ago. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? That people, innocent children, women were killed by the regime of Assad years ago. And there are an imam, a religious leader, considered this massacre as a victory of the Prophet Muhammad against his enemy. Yes. No comments. Well, there are two major problems I'd love to figure out. First of all, the algorithm, AI, become part of promoting hate speech in the region. Algorithm did not control hate speech, such Islamophobia, hate of Jews, racism. Main social media platforms such as Facebook and Twitter have made great efforts to combat the spread of hate speech in their platform. Granted, Facebook removed millions of posts featuring hate speech on its platform in 2020. However, there is a long way to go, especially for languages other than English, because hate speech, gender-based violence, all kind of racism still exists if it is written in different languages, such as Arabic or any other local languages. I wrote these 3 sentences in Arabic. This is my experience. Arabic, 3 sentences. First, fight the infidels, enemies of Islam. Islam is in danger. Okay? As a result, I was stopped by pictures and messages full of violence. And many groups were calling for combating feminists, progressive thinkers like I, and anyone who supposes religious parties, as well as pictures of Arab women from the non-Muslim and Sunni ethnics and racial minorities. I can adopt that the hate speeches is growing, and there are serious threats to the lives of supporters of democracy and freedom in the Arab region. Like in figure 2, it is a group in Facebook asking Muslim Arabs to join and come together to fight and do war against the Islam's enemy, who have been called as kuffar in Arabic. Like if this, nowadays the fundamentalist group consider each person who oppose, who refuse to admit the fundamentalist laws as kafir, means infidel or unbelievable to God. So me, for example, I was being considered as kafira in 2014. I received a lot of threats, like because I wrote many articles against fundamentalist group. At that time, I have a blog in France 24. So as a result of my articles, my blogs for democracy, for women freedom, and so on, I received these online threats. Like, yes, this is the screenshot of the group called Fighting Against the non-Muslim community. Yes, well, how can we stop hate speech from the internet? Let's see, experience of Facebook and Twitter. Facebook now employs 40,000 people responsible for safety and security and has invested 13 billion for this purpose since 2016. Twitter's hate speech policy was recently updated and stated that users should not promote violence against, attack, or threaten others directly because of their race, ethnic, or national origin. Yet accounts that engage in these practices remain active on the platform. Again, there are a lot of accounts, Twitter accounts, full of hate speech and gender-based violence remain active on Twitter platform, such the account of Yusuf Qaradawi. You can see it, he's one in a region. The account of Fouad Tarifi, he's always calling for war against the infidel of Islam. And his screen, this screen, I did it in July 11. And he said, لسنا أعداء للإسلام فإنما هم يكذبون أو لسنا على الإسلام الصحيح لن ترضى عنك اليهود ولا النصارى حتى تتبع ملتهم. If I want to translate it, he's asking Muslim people to not believe the Western, because according to him, that US and Europe, they are the enemies, the first enemy of Islam. Okay? So he's calling the MENA regions people, the Muslim people, to don't trust the Europeans and Americans as long as they are Christians and they are Jews. While we do have our own Christians. We do have Copts, we do have Tunisians who were Jews. So why we do have to get into this religious war? Why we are living in 2021 22, people are living peacefully. Well, this capture is from Hizb al-Tahrir. This is a fundamentalist Muslim political party. They have already an account in Twitter. And those people, they're calling for child marriage. They consider that the Tunisian constitution, it's not their constitution. They want to apply the Sharia law. And they promote the idea of separating women and men. They think that women, they should be at home, they don't have to work. They call for polygamy. They call to eradicate and stop civic engagement. So even the civic state itself, they do not admit it. They don't accept it. So this political party and their ideas were spread on the internet. However, they don't have even any authorization from the government because they don't believe in civic state. They don't believe in constitution. And all their videos, all their ideas is well spread on Twitter and Facebook. You can find it in Google. This is simple, shows the limits of Twitter, Facebook policies in eradicating hate speech. Well, limitation of Meta company and Twitter solution against the hate speech. A part of limit language is mentioned below. There are a lot of fanatic Muslims leaders and thinkers hostile to women's rights, and the cleric from the Sunni and Shia religious sects have accounts on social media platform through which they publish their idea, such as the exiled Egyptian cleric Yusuf al-Qaradawi and Qais al-Ghazali. I think I showed for you the screenshot of Yusuf al-Qaradawi. They are designed as terrorists. Their accounts remain active and prominent. Yusuf Qaradawi has 3.2 million followers. Qais al-Ghazali also, both were the subjects of Arab News Deep Dive series. Al-Qaradawi wrote one day, throughout history, God subjected them, he means the Jew, to people who punished them from their corruption. The last punishment was meted out to them by Hitler. It was a punishment from God. Next time, God willing, the faithful believers will punish them. So Yusuf al-Qaradawi considered that what Hitler did, the Nazism movement, the inhuman Nazism movement, was a God's punishment to the Jew. I suggest automatic detection of hate speech, promotion of AI ethics from MENA region perspective, because all solutions for peace building values and AI ethics are generally initiated by experts who are outside from the region. Plus, popularizing and promotion of AI ethics values among the whole population, because in the mentioned before Arab country, studying technology and engaging in civic culture and work are considered as elite activities, and it's kind of privilege for some classes. According to the Observatory of the Arab League Educational, Cultural and the rates of illiteracy are in Iraq 20%, Tunisia 18%, Syria 14%. If you look at these countries, Iraq, Tunisia, and Syria, these countries are full of hate speech. There are a lot of terrorist attacks. There are a lot of problems of living together and lack of democracy. Another study published by the Economic and Social Forum in Tunisia, it says that most of the young people who were involved in terrorist operation and who went to Iraq and Syria have not completed their university education. And most of them, they are coming from neighborhoods of the capital, Tunis. So they don't come from the upper class. In general, they come from the poor cities. Plus, introductions, ethics to all stakeholders with their own language. As long as foreign language is privileged, we have to provide knowledge, curriculums, reports, studies in Arabic language and reach the local community. Cross-training, because the courses training are in general delivered in English or in French. And as you know, it's always being presented by international experts. So to make it more real, to make it more impactful, youth in MENA, in North Africa especially, they have to get those training in their own language by their own people, because it's their own issue at first of all. MENA region's community needs to feel that AI ethics is human and global values. And they have to believe also that they are part of the international movement of promoting AI ethics. They have to feel valued. They have to feel respected. And we need to engage them, not only to transfer the knowledge for them, no, they have to be part of the solution, they have to feel it. And that's why I said, we need MENA region approach. Because in general, it looks like we people, we are just receiving the knowledge, we don't create it. And to end up with terrorism, to end up with hate speech, we have to be part of the solution. Building an anti-hate discourse by creating a space for open discussion and dialogue that allow us to build an understanding of each other and realize the value of what we have in common. Listening, questioning, and constructive participation by avoiding offensive and direct confrontation with adherents of hate speech, because it may push them to prove and to consist in their own opinions. Well, I'm sharing with you the photo of Salwa Bou Kaikis. She's a Libyan lawyer who was killed in her own house in 2014 as a result of hate speech and campaign were led by Libyan military against her. So she was killed as a result of online hate speech. This happens to her, I mean. Reference material, improvement of framework for hate speech using machine learning, adversarial generative based data augmentation, and this is a link of a journal of Sage Pop. And if you need more information, you can reach me on my email, also my LinkedIn. I'm Maha Jouini from African Center for AI and Digital Technology. Would love to hear from you.